Hi everyone, my name is Dego and I wanted to make a video about success in university. I'll tell you why you should listen to what I have to say a little bit later on in a few slides, but first I wanted to talk about my motivation first. Um, we'll see that here. I watched a video about a TEDx talk about 7 things you need to do before you graduate college. I'll be using the term university just because it's what the term we use here in Canada, but it's essentially the same thing. So, I if you haven't watched that video, basically she goes over 7 propositions of things you should do before graduating. Um, First thing is to cold email. That's basically send an email without much like you wouldn't really expect much from it. You just send an email to someone important and say that you're a college student at the beginning, and then say something, and then they'll probably respond to you. That's a really good idea, in my opinion. Um, but it might not work as if like she put it in a way where she made it sound very easy, but it's not easy. First of all, setting up these emails can be a daunting task, and also it's not easy at all. You have to put a lot of effort into it, and also I'm sure 9 out of 10, probably 19 out of 20 emails you send will not get a response. Second one is to befriend 5 people that you think will change the world. That's interesting. That's an interesting idea, but I think it's a little bit weird because first of all, how do you know who's gonna change the world? You even your ideas of people changing the world are probably not the right ones, and maybe a person that volunteers all their time and you think, oh, that's a great person, will maybe not get a job. Who knows? So I don't think that's so useful, and I don't think it's really attainable, especially if like you don't want to be making friends that you're not compatible with. It's not going to work. So I think it's better to surround yourself with people that are useful to you and are like actually good to you. You be good to them, and that's what friends should be. Don't have other motives for having friends. It is interesting, surely, because in the way she put it, you can get things from these people later on in life. But I don't think friends should be just about that. It's, in my opinion, friends should be about being there for you when you need them, and not and share things together and share situations together. You don't or activities together. You don't want to have them as like assets. The third proposition was to take a class that teaches a practical skill. I think that's for sure an obvious statement. I think everyone should take a practical course. Just learning theory is probably not going to be useful at all for you unless you go into academia. I'm in engineering, so it's kind of hard to understand courses that don't teach useful skills, practical skills. I mean, most of my classes we have labs, so it's as practical as it gets. But a very useful skill, in my opinion, pretty much most fields, is how to use Excel, how to use PowerPoint, how to use Word, how to use a computer and email, and finally, how to program. Program's super useful. I think Python is one of the most useful languages to learn and to quickly script anything. It's very useful. So for her fourth proposition was to start something, so a conference, start a club, start a team. Um, so she made it sound like university students don't really have too much going on all the time, which is not true. Uh, and this was my biggest problem, which I'll talk about in the next slide. She probably forgot how stressful it is to be in university and how many things you have to worry about. So sure, if you have the time, start a conference, start a club, but it's not easy. And I think it's better if you can attend club meetings, if you can move up the ranks if you want to, maybe become a president if you want to later on, if you can. But starting something is not necessarily the way to go, especially if you're just starting something to start something. It's not too useful. But she is right with the possibilities and opportunities that there are, because she says that there's a lot of funding going on, and the chairs and deans will be able to fund whatever you start, whereas in the world after university, that doesn't exist. So I think it's a good idea if you have the time, but a lot of university students just don't have the time. The next one was to get a top-ranked professor in a field that you are interested in and get them to mentor or help you. And I have a problem with this. I think it's great to get a professor to mentor you, but getting the top, like she apparently searched up the top professor in the field and got them to help her. Now, I think it's a good idea to get a professor to help you, but to be honest, most professors can help you. I don't think you have to find the top professor in the field. That's I think is stupid. Sure, if you want to shoot for gold, you can go ahead, but I think there's a bunch of people that will give you great advice, and they're not necessarily in the top of their field. And I'm sure those top-ranked professors probably don't have time for so many people that are looking for mentors and help. So don't worry about finding the top-ranked professor in a field. When I heard that, I just thought that's like, sure, go for it, but it's not something you should need to be 100% worried about. Sure, look at their credentials. Sure, see that they have relevant experience in what you're asking them for help for, but it doesn't have to be someone with a Nobel Prize, right? Everyone has opinions, and I'm sure that even someone with a Nobel Prize can give a bad opinion. So just look out for that. Next one was to go on an adventure. So internship abroad, road trip with friends, etc. I think it's very useful to have a lot of experiences under your belt. I had an internship abroad, and I realized that maybe like going abroad is super interesting, but I also did miss my family. So it's tough. It's not easy. So like you have to just try things to see if you like it, right? And I think that's what she was going for. The thing is, she made it sound like, oh, you guys, like when you're out for the summer, you have like 3-4 months where you don't have anything to do. So you can just go on a road trip with friends, travel the world or whatever. And she's like, even for a week. But the thing is, like, sometimes you just don't have a week. You have, like, for example, I've had to work every summer to, first of all, make ends meet and also get experience. And I didn't have a lot more than a week, and I needed to relax after a stressful set of exams maybe, or after just work and I had to like get my mind ready for the start of school again. So even those little gaps, you're not going to get much studying done. So I think it's not it's useful, but a road trip I don't think is going to change your mind unless it's a road trip to another country. Because if you're going to the cottage with friends, it's probably not going to help out too much with what you want to do. It might reveal something hidden in your mind, but it's not going to change your life. But there are some circumstances, so if you can do it, but I don't think it's too relevant. The last one is to get a job every year in summer. Make sure everything's varied, and I agree with this. Every summer, having a different job. It's the only, she mentions that it's the only time where you can get a different job every year and get away with it. And I think that's great, yeah, because during university, there's a bunch of opportunities and you can get different jobs. The problem is, it's not as easy as she made it out to be. She made it seem like just get a job. But it's not that easy. There's so many people right now in my year that are looking for jobs, and they have crazy skills, and some of them have really good experience, and it's still not easy because the competition's huge and fierce. And sure, they keep trying, but it's not. Sometimes you just have to get lucky as well with timing. So just try for this, but just don't feel bad if you don't get anything, because it's not easy. Even people with experience and super crazy smart people sometimes don't get it. So on the next slide, I talk about problems with this video. So I mentioned some of them. So I said many of her experiences are not applicable to many. Some of these reasons are because she is in the U.S., also because she went to a pretty good school in the U.S. She said Penn State. So it's a pretty good school, I'd say. Pretty well recognized. So I think also that from her perspective, like being done undergrad and being in graduate, like being in the workforce already, and she said she even started her own company, and she's been done with school for at least 2 years, from what I could tell. She probably forgot, and a lot of people do this. They just forget how intensive school is while you're there, right? When I'm done exams, I think, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought. But during exams, you're dying, and that's the thing, right? You can look back and say, oh man, I wish I did more. But during that time, you're thinking, I can't do anymore, right? And looking back, you can always say that your past self was lazier, slow, but the thing is, you're probably going to be the same way if you had as much as on your plate as you do during university. It's actually a lot. So sure, some people might actually have it pretty easy, so they should be doing more. But I think a lot of people would agree that just everything they have on their plate is a lot. So when she says just start a club, I think that's kind of out of grasp for a lot of people, just because it's just a lot of work to do something like that, and even come up with an idea of what club to start. So I don't know, or a conference about what? There's a lot of conferences out there. You don't want to start competing with some of them that are well placed or well grounded. You don't want to go against those, right? Because it'll just be a waste. You want to make a new thing, and like, what are you going to make up, right? And if you can come up with something, that's a good idea. But otherwise, don't waste your time trying to make something that out of thin air, right? Um, so the next thing is that people currently in university cannot do many of the things uh, she says due to lack of time and schoolwork, and yeah, that's all the things I mentioned. And even I didn't even mention extracurricular, so you might already be in a team or a club, and even work. There's a lot of people that work during the semester, during school time, and it's not easy. It piles up. Work piles up quite a bit. Um, so I want to go over some things I found useful, some things that are a little bit out of topic with what we're talking about right now. I want to just talk about things that you might want to do when you're finishing high school and when you are already in university, just so you get an idea of what my experience was like and what I found to be useful. But first, before that, I want to just talk a bit about me. Just I'm trying to show off or anything. I just want you to realize that why I'm talking about this. I'm not making some of these things up. Um, I just want you to be able to believe what I say. Um, so I'm in a Canadian university doing engineering, physics, and management. So I take engineering courses, physics courses, and management, which is commerce courses. So I'm in the fourth year of a 5-year program. I did 3 summers of student research assistantships. My first one was in the Canadian University. Second one was with another professor in this same Canadian University. And my third one last summer was in the UK, in another university. I'm working part-time right now as a research assistant. I worked as a TA last year, teaching assistant, for a semester. And next year I will be working in a year-long internship at a company. So I had a 96 final year average in high school and a 3.9 cumulative GPA in university right now. Cumulative as in all the years, all 3 years that I finished and a half, 3 years and a half that I finished. So being in fourth year. And I'm president of a club that helps people find research jobs, and VP finance of another club that helps set up social events and stuff in my program. I also volunteer for an ambassador program for my program, and I'm a tutor and a mentor for younger people. So this slide, I'm just going to talk about high school a bit. You can I'm going to try to go through it quick so people in university don't have to listen through this, but it might be useful just to look back and maybe help other people that you might know that might be a little bit younger and are still in high school. So the first thing is try your best in school. Sometimes people think, oh, high school doesn't matter, especially in the younger years. They'll think, high school doesn't matter, I'll just do well in my last year, or high school doesn't matter, I'll just do well in my SATs. And that's sort of true. You might want to start doing well and try your best, because the work skills transfer to university. There's a bunch of people that basically took it very easy in high school and then did terribly in university, and you don't want to be that person. Go to class, get to know your teachers well. They can give you letters of recommendation. It also helps so much in learning if the teacher knows that you care about the subject. It helps you in learning, because they'll probably look at you, and sometimes in high school, most teachers make sure that you understand the topic. They go slowly enough that you understand the topics. So if you're a little bit unsure about something, ask. If they'll understand that the class just isn't ready. If you have questions, a lot of other people in the class will probably also have questions. And university, some of this goes away because there's so many people that they just keep going, the profs. But teachers in high school will mostly go slowly enough so you can understand everything as they're teaching it. Join clubs and teams if possible. I didn't, and I'm sounding like the lady where I finished high school and now I'm looking back and regretting it. But if you can do so, it does help. I know a lot of people that did do clubs, and they had a little bit of an advantage over the rest of us that did not. I'm saying this because I was not able to attend clubs because I had to take the bus back home. Otherwise, I couldn't get back home. So, because I lived pretty far from my school, so that's why I couldn't join clubs. Otherwise, I would have. Robotics teams are really cool. Also, don't settle for average in the field relevant courses. So, if you are going for, let's say, I don't know, a math major, and you don't do well in English, I understand. That same thing happened to me. I didn't do too well in English, but you need to do well in math. You can't take average and accept it. If you want to go into a field, you need to do well in that field's courses. You need to do well. It's if you don't, you can do better. If other people are doing better, I'm sure that you can do better. Sure, circumstances are different. That's understandable. That's true. But you can always do better. You just have to find a way. It's hard. I understand. But it's very important that you raise your average during high school, because in university it just gets harder. So you need to understand everything, the whole basics, especially with math, for example. You need to understand the basics to go into university. Okay. What else do we have? Think about what you want to do for the rest of your life. Sure, it's hard as hell. But the more you think about it, the more you'll change your mind. Actually, and that's actually good, because you'll research it probably, and you'll look into it, and then you'll realize, I don't want to do this. And sure, you might change your mind after going to university, but the more you think about it, the more you'll change your mind, and the more you'll be sure about your final decision, if you have one. But remember, there's no problem in doing an extra year of high school. There's no problem in going to university and doing 1 year and then realizing you don't like it, because you can always switch. And 1 year might seem like a lot, but it's not that much. The money you spend in university is quite a bit, but it's still better than having to work in something you hate for the rest of your life. Try to work over the summers. I didn't do any of that. I didn't work at all. The work you do over the summers in high school are not very useful for employers most of the time in university, because they'll look at it and be like, oh, you worked at Subway. That might not be too useful for us, but it does show that you at least have something compared to someone that doesn't have anything. It shows that you do have work experience. You can follow orders from your boss, and it's not someone without anything on their resume. It does help a little bit. If you can't get a job over the summers, then learn a skill that can be useful in your field. Programming is useful in so many fields that I would very much recommend that, Python. Otherwise, you can learn anything over the summer, especially now with internet. You can YouTube pretty much any type of tutorial and you'll find it. And apply for scholarships. Very few people do this, and it helps so much. It can kickstart so many things in your university career that if you have a scholarship, it not only helps out with money, also helps out with your resume, also helps out with grants for research, and so on. The list is huge of things that help with scholarships. Even if it's not that big, it still helps. Puts you forward as soon as you start university. And also, getting scholarships, the entrance scholarships are much easier than getting scholarships once you're in university, in my opinion. Especially because you have to apply. Applications take a while. They're quite a lot of work. So applying for these scholarships during high school when your workload is a little bit lower is pretty useful. Okay, I spent quite a bit of time on that slide. I was hoping not to, but we'll be in this one now. Once you start university, first of all, force yourself to go to class. I never suffered from this because I always go to class. But what I've found is sometimes I thought, why isn't anyone going to class for this class? And you'll realize that some professors are actually not very useful in teaching. So, but it depends on each person, right? There's some people that don't like the way some professors teach, and I like it. There's other people. There's the other way around. It really depends on you and your learning style. Don't follow your friends. And if your friends skip, see if you can learn, because sometimes it's not the professor. Sometimes it's just the people around you that might distract you. Sit at the front. Sitting at the front helps so much. People might think, I don't want to seem like a nerd or whatever. And honestly, in university, no one cares. No one cares if you sit at the front, at the back. No one cares. Just if you sit at the front, it clears up so much. You see better. You can pay attention much better because there's not a guy on their laptop watching videos in front of, like on the side or in front of you. You just have the professor. You have to make eye contact or like look at the board. You can't like go on your phone as easily. It helps out so much with concentration. So do that. Go for the first 3 weeks at least. Let's say you have 3 lectures per week. Go for the first 3 weeks. If you realize that you're not finding it useful, then you have the right to not go, right? Sure, you have the right whenever to not go, but in my opinion, you should give it at least 3 weeks to realize if you like it or not, because sometimes you'll just find a class to be amazing for the first week, and then you realize it's not as good. And the other way also happens. Sometimes you'll think, oh, this guy's terrible. And then when less people start showing up to the class in week 2, then they'll just get better. Sometimes that happens, actually. There's things like that, right? So don't give up on a course too early. Have a proper sleep schedule. This helps so much. I get 8 hours a day. I recommend you do so too. Don't pull all-nighters because they're not good for you. It's not good for you for the whole week. So if you pull one all-nighter, you're going to be off for the whole week, in my experience. I've only had one all-nighter in my whole university career in 4 years. And this is because, or 3 years and a half. And this is because I had to finish a lab report, and they made it due within 24 hours. I had to do it, so I had to get it finished that night. So I had to just finish it, and that was it. But for studying, I don't recommend all-nighters at all. If you have to do a report or something that is due, and it has to get done, then yes, do it. Though a lot of professors do take extensions. Depends on the class. Depends how big the class is too. But some professors, especially if you know them, if they know your name, they will make an exception. But sometimes you just have to finish it right overnight. So that's fine. But for studying, it's been proven that scientifically that you retain less knowledge if you don't get a good night's sleep before between studying and the exam. Um, the next one is to make a group of friends that you can work with. I'm not saying copy their work or let them copy your work, but it does help a lot if you have a group of, let's say, 5, 6 friends. You all work on something together, maybe split off, or even having some people to ask if you don't understand a question. And if you have 6 minds on a question, like compared to one, it makes a huge difference because someone's gonna understand something, while you probably won't, right? So it's very useful, especially in university where some questions just don't make sense, and you can't really ask the prof sometimes because they don't have office hours that day, or the TAs are not useful, or something like that. It's very useful to have other people with you. Also, just so you stay sane. It helps to have other people with you working on the same task, so they have empathy of what you're going through. And make sure they're people that care about school. If it's people that leave things till the last moment, doesn't help. I like people that start their assignments early because I also do so, and surrounding myself with those kind of people allow me to ask them, hey, and this is what I mean by a bit of healthy competition. Small things can help. Just basically, hey, dude, did you start your assignment? And they're like, yeah. And you're like, oh, okay. And inside your mind, even if you don't do it, even if you don't think about it, you're still going, wow, I need to start that assignment. He started it, right? So subconsciously, you are going to have a little bit of competition, and that's fine. I think that's great because you're competing for a good thing. You're competing in doing an assignment. You're not competing in, I don't know, who can drink more vodka, right? It's something productive that you're competing in. So it can help quite a bit, even if you don't think it does at first. And participate in class. If you sit at the front and participate, that's like the gold duo, because if you participate in class, first of all, the question that you'll ask, again, everyone's going to have that question, so just ask it. And also, the professor will realize that you care about the class. Now, don't ask questions if you're not caught up with the content, because then you'll ask some stupid thing that the professor maybe covered last class or something, and it can make you look pretty stupid. But if you're caught up, then no worries. Ask to your heart's content. And even if you aren't caught up, sometimes you can spot even mistakes from the prof. And some professors don't like it when you spot mistakes on their class notes or whatever. But some actually are pretty thankful for it because you just basically saved the whole class from making a mistake during the exam because they wrote something wrong on the notes. Okay, so there's a lot more tips I can go through. These are a few more that I wanted to talk about. First of all, finding a prof or upper year student that can mentor you. So in her video, in the TEDx talk, the lady mentioned to find the top of the field professor or whatever. I think if you're not going for something that is highly technical, just asking, I don't know, I'm having a rough time with this. What can I do? Or do you know if this class is hard? Find a professor and an upper year, in my opinion, that have like the professor of the department you're in and an upper year in your department, that means that the professor will be able to maybe help you out with things. Maybe they can even um, send around like things that you think the professor of a course should know. You can tell maybe this professor about it, and the word of mouth will happen, um, where maybe the professor will know about what they're doing wrong, the one that's instructing whichever course you complained about, and they might change something. There's a lot of benefits from this. Also, you get another viewpoint and a lot of things. Maybe you tell them I'm studying for this, and then they'll be like, no, it might not be useful to spend all your resources in this study for this other thing or something like that. The upper years are super useful as well. If you can get a friend upper year and and them letting you know what are the courses to look out for, maybe what courses to take, which courses are just not worth taking. That actually saves you a bunch of money and lets you take courses that you might be more interested in. I'd say get in the habit to start work early. So this goes hand in hand with the last slide where I said make friends that will compete a little bit with you. So this is important because if you start work early and they start work early, then you can start comparing answers early. You won't have to worry about anything later on. It helps to lighten up your workload later on in the semester. Sometimes they'll give you assignments at the beginning of the semester, and you might be thinking, I'll just do them in a week or whatever. But if you do them then, you won't have that assignment during midterm season. And this is a very important thing because midterm season is terrible and no one likes it. But if you can actually get to do those assignments then, like beforehand, you'll have so much more time than anyone else because they will be doing their assignments during midterm season, and you can probably study more than them for the midterms, and you're probably going to do better than them on the midterms. And that means even if everyone does bad, if you do better than them, let's say you do 20% better than average, let's say the average is 40, you can get a 60. Well, once that gets curved, you end up with an 80. They get a 60. So something like that can go very far. Try to think about your future you. I know it's super hard, especially when, again, when you look back at it, you think, oh, it's so easy to do. But during procrastination is a big problem. So just try your best and think about future you. And in my opinion, I'll skip to the last point. Scheduling your big tasks and make a to-do list is super important. Very, very important. And also prioritizing what task is more important than another one. So let's say you have an assignment due tomorrow that's worth 5%, and you have a midterm tomorrow that's worth 25%. Do you do the assignment? Well, I would say do part of the assignment because sometimes some classes will give a minimum of 50% if you submit something. Some classes do that. And just pity marks maybe. Write something for each question quickly and then study for your exam. But don't do the assignment over the exam because if it's worth less, then don't worry about it. Even if it's the day of, I would say study for the exam. Don't do the assignment even because 5% is not that much. 25% is a lot. So just know what to care about. Also, if you know that one class has a very easy marking TA, let's say, don't spend all your resources into making the assignment amazing, because you'll just get the same mark as everyone else that didn't even try. Or even if you can, also, nice assignments are, if you make it easier for the TA to mark your things, it's better. But if you make your assignment super beautiful and there's no reason to, you'll just end up getting the same mark as someone with a disgusting assignment. So, in my opinion, use your time wisely. I have fallen to this trap. I used LaTeX quite a bit. It does look much better. At the beginning, I was so slow with it that it actually took me forever to write just a document, right? Now I'm actually faster than Word with it, with LaTeX, but before it was super slow. So just be careful with your time and just treat it as if each hour is gold that you are using. So just think about that. So the last slide is about extracurriculars. So I think it's a good time to do extracurriculars university. The TEDx talk talks about this. It is a great time because otherwise, when are you going to do it once you're done university? Sure, it might not be clubs, maybe it's like gatherings later, but it's not the same. Here's a moment where you have mostly everyone of your age discussing, participating, and also a lot of your money actually goes to clubs. When you go to, a lot of your tuition goes to clubs directly, so you might as well use some of it. But time management is key. So if you can't get your assignments done, don't go to the club, right? Hackathons and weekend competitions are great things to put in resume, especially if you win. And they're so much fun, and they're a lot of free things too. So I went to one hackathon in Yale, and it was a lot of fun. It was basically free. We had things to eat there. We didn't get a lot of sleep because obviously you have to code something in 48 hours, but it was a lot of fun. And you bond quite a bit with the people you go with. Join a team or a club. It helps your resume as well, and also if you care about what you're doing, it makes a huge difference in your mental state and also your attitude. If you like what you're doing, it's gonna make it a lot more interesting to participate in a lot of these events. Join the club by just going to general meetings if you can, and then maybe move up in the executive team if you want to keep going. You can maybe move up to a high post if you want to. Again, some recruiters care about this, some don't, so it really depends. And depending on the degree you have also. So if you're a math student, it might not be as useful as if you are a political science student to be president of a club. So conferences sometimes offer incentives for students to attend. So a lot of friends got free conferences like attendance, and also they might pay for your food, your travel, accommodation, and even maybe your department might be able to fund some of this. And also some professors you maybe worked with also might be able to fund this. So there's a bunch of ways that you can attend these conferences without spending anything from your pocket. If you have to, then think about it. Money is hard to come by, but at the same time, some of these conferences are very useful. They're a great networking tool sometimes, so just think about it. Becoming a teaching assistant or working part-time is very useful as well. It's a great experience. It pays well. Um, Depending on the university, it pays very well. And also, like teaching assistants jobs pay well. Um, and also, you can just, if you have the time, just work. If you don't have the time, do not do this. Just if you feel you're already struggling, working will just make it worse. Um, Make sure you balance your schoolwork with all of these. Don't exhaust yourself, and also make sure you have enough time to relax and socialize. This is super important. Um, I don't know anyone that just works. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to just work without getting distracted a little bit. It's just human to want to just get distracted for a while, even if it's not socializing, even if you're not talking to anyone, just browsing Reddit or going to YouTube and watching a video, uh, just checking the news. That that might not look like socializing and relaxing, but it is. Uh, so the final slide I just wanted to go over is that you can get all three of these things: good grades, social life, and enough sleep. It's not true that you can't. You can get all of these. You can do well in school by studying with a lot of time in advance. You can get enough sleep. You can get 8 hours a day. Just trust me, I get 8 hours a day. I take 7 courses per semester. I work, I volunteer, I run clubs, and I still get enough sleep and get relatively good grades. So it's doable, and I can still have a social life. I can get on Rocket League and play a bunch every other night or so. I can stay on campus and enjoy maybe a drink or two in the pub. I don't drink, but just going there to socialize and other things like that. Every now and then go to a party. It's doable. You just don't overdo any of these things, right? Don't spend too much time sleeping. Don't spend too much time socializing because you need to study. And also don't study too much, or else it's kind of a law of diminishing returns. You basically hit a point, and then the more you study, the less you'll get from that studying. So at first, you might do 1 hour of studying, and you might increase 10% of your grade. But by the end, once you're at 90%, you keep studying, and you're just going to get 1% from each hour, right? And that's why getting a 99 versus a 98 is like going from a 60 to a 70, right? It's a huge amount of work that you do to do marginally better, and sometimes it's just not worth it. So in my opinion, social life and good grades can be well balanced, and you can still go to all classes and all labs and everything. So this might have been a little bit longer than I expected, but I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm making it probably for people to watch and maybe get something out of this. You don't have to follow all or even any of these, but if I open your mind maybe a little bit, that kind of and that's kind of the purpose of this video. I just want people to think about what they like and what they maybe should do, and so I'm sure I missed something. Maybe you don't agree with some of these things, but if you don't, just take whatever advice I gave you that does apply to your situation and maybe make your life a little bit better. I don't know. Also making this video for me in maybe 5 years, I can look back and laugh at how wrong I was maybe in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching. Maybe it's not the best quality video I've ever made due to it being PowerPoint slides and the such. But wow, we're at 50 minutes. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.